Rigor Racing has been sold to TJ Bashire, and Daniel Suarez speaks on his uncertain future with Trackhouse Racing for 2026. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. First, going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Gibbs' 2025 Sonic Grillo scheme that we'll see in the Cup Series race tomorrow at night. This car looks really good in my opinion. I love the colors on it overall. They match really well. Love the blue, like the green. It's very solid. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Atlanta. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kyle Seek's 2025 Big House scheme that we'll see this weekend at Atlanta. Car looks okay in my opinion. I like the simplicity of it, like the yellow. I like the black. I think the car is decent and it does have some good colors to it. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Spencer Boyd's 2025 My Auto Store scheme that we'll see at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Truck's okay in my opinion. It's not spectacular by any stretch of imagination. It's okay. There's some decent colors to it. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Denny Hamlin's 2025 Kings Hawaiian scheme that we'll see in 4 Cup races in 2025. We finally got the Kings Hawaiian car, and I gotta say, it's worth the wait. It looks beautiful. Joe Gibbs Racing knocked this one out of the park. The sponsorship looks good. The colors look great. It's gonna be a nice car to see out on the racetrack at Atlanta and a couple other races throughout the year. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brendan Poole's 2025 Toxic Waste scheme that we'll see at Chicago and a couple other races in 2025. We've seen a Toxic Waste car before, but I think it's one of the better ones we have seen so far this year. I think it looks really good. I think that Ryan Passan and the people over there, Alf Prime, knocked this one out of the park. It looks great. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Chicago. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Jeff Burton's 2025 AJ Transport scheme that we'll see at Atlanta, also known as Echo Park. Car's okay in my opinion. It's not spectacular. I don't really love the color of the car. It don't look amazing. Other than that, though, the car is okay. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Cam Waters' 2025 trading scheme that we'll see this weekend at Lime Rock. Cam Waters is in the Truck Series for the first time since last year. Truck looks great. Love the colors on it, and it's nice to see an Australian sponsor come in to work with the team. Pretty excited to see this car and truck out on the racetrack in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Hendrick Motorsports. As was noted by the NASCAR Insights account yesterday, the Hendrick Motorsports has placed a car in the top 5 for the last 25 NASCAR Cup Series points races. This is the second longest streak in NASCAR Cup Series history. The team that has the longest streak is Joe Gibbs Racing. I think they have a record around 35 or 36 straight races from 2016 to 2017, or 2015 to 2016. Say what you want to say about Hendrick Motorsports. Even off their off days like Pocono, for example, they always find a way to get a car inside the top 5. They are obviously the fastest team in NASCAR, usually on a week-by-week basis, and they're usually up front contending for wins and contending for victories. And they always have a car that's contending up there, and they've had at least 1 or 2 every single week. I mean, they ran really good speed at the end of the race at Pocono. Chase got a top 5. Kyle Larson almost got a top 5 at Pocono. And I think that streak might continue this weekend at Pocono, considering the pace and speed that the Hendrick cars have shown so far this year. So very interesting stuff for sure. Very kind of wild stuff, but very interesting stuff for sure, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Owen and Audrey Lawson. It was announced yesterday that Owen and Audrey Lawson will compete at the BC 39 national events that will take place at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in about a month or so from now. The Brian Clausen 39 Nationals take place, of course, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they are a major event that takes place at that racetrack in honor of Brian Clausen. And now you've got Owen and Audrey, 2 young drivers who are part of the Kyle Larson family. They're both now getting the chance and opportunity to race in dirt, and I think both do want to have a long-term success in motorsports long-term, and I love that the family continues to grow their presence in the motorsports world. Owen's been winning some races to my understanding, and he's been very good as well. So in a nutshell, when I look at this is some really exciting stuff for sure. I'm really excited to see how they're going to both perform in these events coming up, and I think it's just a cool deal to see that the Larson family continues to grow their racing presence. Kyle Larson, of course, one of the best drivers in the world and one of the best NASCAR Cup Series drivers of all time. I'm not sure what the long-term plan for Owen is, if he wants to just be a dirt guy or he wants to down the road come in and do some NASCAR stuff once he turns 16 or 17. We'll see what happens in the future, but nonetheless, really excited to see that Owen and Audrey will get to compete at the BC 39 Nationals in about a month or so from now. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Josh Bicki. As it was announced yesterday that Josh Bicki will drive the 66 for Garage 66 in the Cup Series next weekend at the Chicago Street Course. I believe this will be the first time that Josh Bicki, or the second time that Josh Bicki has driven a 66 car this year. Josh is one of the most underrated road course racers. Of course, he's going to be driving a truck for Nice Motorsports this weekend at Lime Rock, and he's been really good at road courses in the past. When he's been in top level equipment like the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, he's been up front competing for the win and the victory, and I think he has a really decent chance to do a decent job. We don't know exactly how many entries are going to show up, so if we have more than 40 cars show up for the race at Chicago, there's a very good chance that this car might fail to qualify, but I think if anyone can get a car at a road course into the field, I do think that if there's a team that could, it is a guy like Josh Bicki. So I do have some confidence that this team is going to show some pretty good pace and some really strong speed that weekend. I think Josh might contend for top 30. It could be a very chaotic event, so you never know what happens on that front. But great to see that Josh Bicki is back in the NASCAR Cup Series once again. He deserves opportunities and chances, and I'm glad to see he'll get to drive the 66 car next weekend at Chicago. I think he's going to be fast. I think he's going to be good, and I think he'll show some really good pace and speed next weekend at the Chicago Street Course. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Alex Club. As it was announced on Wednesday that Alex Club has been fined $250 from ARCA. It was basically the reason that Alex Club has been fined $250 for ARCA is apparently they have a section in the ARCA book in regards, I think, to fines and basically in regards to social media posts that surface. And Alex Club had gone a little bit of rant after the ARCA race had concluded about the lack of respect that had been taking place on the racetrack. And I think that a lot of people in the industry might not have been very, very happy about that. Now, it wasn't because he went against a lot of the rich kids that were racing in the series. According to what was posted, I think Jeff Gluck clarified this as well. It sounds like it's because there was a bunch of swear words that are being used by Alex Club. Okay, ARCA, I'm going to say this really, really quick. You got someone who is very passionate, who wants to care about the sport. And I get Alex Club is in up front competing for wins because he's driving a legacy car. But let's be, legacy engine, I should say. But let's be real and honest, Alex Club isn't wrong. A lot of the kids that do come in this series, that do race in this series, they come in because of money. And I get that some of the kids that do have money that come into racing, some of them do have inherent talent. There's no denying that. But at the same time, I feel like giving a fine to Alex here was a little bit overkill. And if it's because of swearing, it's like, come on. It's 2025. This isn't 2004 with what happened at the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. We should not be fining people for swearing. I don't understand this decision to fine Alex Club for this. I get it's a little finicky to do it. I didn't really understand why they fined Alex to begin with. I think it's a bad judgment call on ARCA's part. I'm not a big fan of a penalty for something like this. I think it's a bad decision to go ahead and fine him because I just think it's stupid to fine him. Now, I think he's already paid it off at this point, so it really doesn't matter. And I know it's not that big of a penalty, but a $250 fine is a little bit excessive from them, so I don't think it's the best decision to fine someone for speaking their opinion on a situation and a point. But that's just my opinion on that. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Wesley Slimp. Now, we already know that Wesley Slimp will be making his NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series debut this weekend at Lime Rock for the Truck Series. But it was also confirmed Declan Wayman, who I believe works at Front Stretch and other contributions as well, he noted that Wesley Slimp actually has a 3-race deal to drive the 62 for Homer Friesen Racing. He is also going to run Watkins Glen in August, and his final race will be at the Charlotte Roval as well. Wesley Slimp, I believe, comes from the Trans Am Series and other forms of road course racing as well. And he's going to have a chance and opportunity to drive for a pretty decent team for a couple of races. What's also exciting is it's another race for Homer Friesen to have 2 trucks on the racetrack. I think Homer Friesen Racing, they ran the 2 trucks a couple years back. Lane Ray's got the chance and opportunity to make a few starts in that truck, and they've had the truck for Jessica Friesen in the past as well. I really hope Wesley can do a really good job with the Homer Friesen teams. I could see him being a sleeper pick to get some really good finishes, but if you got guys like Kyle Busch running the truck series race at Watkins Glen and other drivers getting behind a wheel that are good road course racers like a Jordan Taylor down the road, I think then they're going to have a better chance and opportunity to beating someone like Wesley Slimp. But I think Wesley has a really good opportunity here. I think this is a good team to go work with. I think Homer's team has been getting better. Stuart Friesen's been improving his craft. He's been getting better. He's been showing a lot more speed. And I really think there's a good chance and opportunity here for this truck to be really fast and really, really competitive. So I hope he can do a good job. It'd be exciting to see him run really, really well. We'll see what he does, and we'll see if Wesley Slimp can have some really good runs in those races in the Craftsman Truck Series in 2025. Great opportunity to work with Homer Friesen. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about TNT. As it was reported by Adam Stern yesterday afternoon that TNT has officially revealed some of the graphics that will be used for their broadcast starting this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Remember, this will be the first time that TNT has been back in NASCAR since 2014, and they will be doing their first broadcast in over a decade. I gotta say, these graphics look really, really solid. You've got like a side-by-side battle for the battles of the in-season tournament. You've got like an example of like Shane Smith versus Austin Cindric, for example. And some of the graphics packages that I do see here are really, really intriguing and really exciting because I'm very intrigued to see how the TNT coverage is going to go. Now, obviously, I think we all should expect that TNT is probably not going to be good as Amazon because of the fact they're going to be on a cable network. And cable and TV have much different restrictions compared to like races that are on normal TV, for example. So that's why I'm not surprised that the coverage isn't as strong. My hope is that their coverage is about as good as the CW's. The CW's has been very, very good. Not as good as Amazon, but it's been very, very good, and having one consistent place where the ratings have generally been really good for the Xfinity Series, which could really help TNT in a big way as well if they can get a really good broadcast. I just think that if their broadcast can be about that good, I'd be very excited about that. I'd be pretty happy about that as well. I think these graphics, though, are really, really good. You've got Dale Jr. involved in these broadcasts. He's helping in a pretty big way on that front. And in a nutshell, there's a lot of things to be excited about in regards to the graphics package that they are using this year. There's some good things to look at it. There's some better things they can do for sure, but I think these graphics are solid, and I do think they're pretty good for the broadcast for TNT. Excited for how those broadcasts are going to go. I hope they can be good and really strong this year for TNT. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Thermal Club. As it was confirmed a couple days ago on Wednesday that IndyCar will not likely be returning to the Thermal Club in 2026, according to one of the track owners for the track. Thermal Club has been on the IndyCar schedule for the last 2 seasons. It was on the schedule last year for the All-Star 1 Million All-Star Challenge, where only like 12 or 13 cars made it. And let's be real and honest, the first race we ran there was really, really bad. The second race was still not that good, but it was a little better than the first race because, one, he had more opportunities to make passes, but that's still when a lot of the hybrid issues were coming into play and effect, and he didn't have the new tire rules that came in for that week, and it was very, very tough and very, very difficult to pass. So he had a really good battles between like Christian Lundgaard and Alex Poe. That was probably the only good battle that happened all day. You had the power outage that took place as well. That was an issue with Fox more than anything. Talking about Thermal Club, I think that this move makes a lot of sense. I really think Thermal Club being on the schedule did not make any sense for IndyCar at this point. And now you got to ask yourself, with Thermal Club likely not coming back to the IndyCar schedule, what track is going to replace it? There is a ton of talk right now that IndyCar could be headed to Mexico City for the 2026 season. And it sounds like they're getting very close to having that deal done. The fact they're not going back to Thermal Club and likely going to Mexico, I think that is a better move logistically. And I think for fans especially, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Plus, you're going to have better fan experience going to race in Mexico than like going to Thermal Club, for example. This is no disrespect to Thermal. They do a lot of really good things out there, but I don't think the Thermal Club should be hosting a IndyCar race when very few people can get out there, and ticket prices are as expensive as they are for the event as it is. So I will say they've gone down a little bit, but I will say I don't think they deserve to be on the schedule. I'm glad to see the track likely be gone at the end of this year. They don't need to come back anymore. Let's focus on getting some good tracks on the schedule. Let's get some ovals on the schedule, please. So I think that could be a really good thing that helps the growth of IndyCar going forward into the future. And I think it's good they're not coming back there. I really didn't care for the Thermal Club to begin with. Wasn't a fan when they announced it initially. And I'm glad to see they're likely not coming back to the Thermal Club in 2026, which is one of the best decisions that IndyCar's made if they don't go back to the Thermal Club. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the CW. Now, yesterday, the CW put out a very long post talking about their product for the NASCAR Xfinity Series and their coverage as well. And they said a lot of really good things about their coverage so far this season. The CW praised the NASCAR Xfinity Series when it comes to the racing product that we see on the racetrack every single week. They say that they have the best racing product out there, that being, of course, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and they also talk about the production level they have put into the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So far this year, I gotta say the CW has been a massive, massive positive on most areas. I think, one, their coverage has been the best for the Xfinity Series it's been in a very, very long time. You have a dedicated home that is set for every single race, every single weekend. And you're not going to miss a race unless, of course, you are in certain areas of the country, but it's set in a certain area if you're able to get the race. And plus, I think the coverage this year for the Xfinity Series has been excellent and very, very good. The issue is the access, and this is the one thing criticism I've had for the CW since the beginning. They still don't have the app completely ready at this moment for people that cannot get the races on the CW at the time, because there might be something being shown, because local affiliates, they basically get the opportunity to choose what is put on there. Now, to my understanding, I think there's some people at the CW that are not very happy that not everyone's able to access it at this point, and they're trying to work through those kinks at this point, but they're also working on adding an opportunity for the app to be available, which I think the app is going to need to be available in the future for people in certain areas that cannot tune into these races. I think that is one thing and one area that the CW really, really, really needs to work on and get better on, because that's been one of the big issues that I think the CW generally has had, is people being able to use it. But despite that, I think the ratings have been really good this year for Xfinity. They've only had 2 races this year that have been under 1 million, and one that just barely went under 1 million. There's been only one race under 900,000 this year, which is the best year start for a year we've seen for Xfinity when it comes to the TV ratings. I think, in a nutshell, when you look at a CW, there's a lot of positive things to look at. Sure, there's some things they definitely could do a little bit better on for sure, but I think the CW's been doing a lot of good things so far this year. Their production's been good, their quality's been good, and I still think there's some things they got to work on, but I think as time goes on, they'll get better. They care, they listen, and they listen to a lot of the criticisms that have been flowing around, especially for networks like Fox, for example, who have not really cared about the coverage. I think the CW has done a pretty good job on their coverage so far, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Steve Fels. Now, we already talked about the situation with the lawsuit in a previous video that you saw earlier today. But Steve Fels actually called out a network recently, basically in that same podcast, in that same episode. He basically called out a network by saying, I'm not going to mention the pundit that basically brought this up. But he said that the pundit expected only 1.2 million average viewers for the 2025 Coca-Cola 600. So that number was way off. If I'm not mistaken, the Coke 600 this year got like 2.1 or 2.2 million. I think it got like 2.5 million actually for their first event. So they got double of what they originally got. He did not mention the name of the network, but I think we all know who Steve Phelps is calling out. It's obviously Fox Sports. Look, Fox Sports was not very happy losing the Coca-Cola 600 this year. They wanted to keep the Coke 600 for 2025. However, they lost the Coke 600 because Amazon wanted to come in and start broadcasting races. And you've seen it with Fox. Ever since Amazon Prime has come in, from what people have been saying, they've been getting DMs from people, from Fox executives in particular, who have not been very, very happy with a lot of the negative criticism that is thrown the way of Fox Sports. And I definitely can tell you that from what I know, there's a lot of people in NASCAR probably not happy right now at Fox currently at the moment for their coverage not being very, very good. But let's be real and honest, they're just frustrated because a lot of people have been calling them out. They know there's a lot of criticism toward Fox, but they just don't really care about it. And I've said this for a while. Fox does not care about NASCAR coverage anymore. They haven't cared for a while. It's been going downhill, the quality of coverage for NASCAR, but it's not just NASCAR, it's all their coverage. Their coverage for the NFL, their coverage for college football in particular, and their coverage for a lot of sports that they cover, like the MLB, has been going down the drain the last couple years, but NASCAR's been like the canary in the coal mine, where their coverage has been the worst off. And I think that Fox, if they put as much effort as like Prime put in, or at least somewhat of effort like CW's put in, or even if TNT puts on a good effort, I just think that they're so far behind everybody else, it's sad. They have been told to get their broadcasts modernized. They are the least modern broadcasts that I've watched in quite some time, and their broadcasts have just not been good. They've been really bad. They've been very janky. They don't do good. They're not good coverage. Their coverage has been abysmal. Their coverage has been atrocious for a while, and maybe if their coverage was better, they'd probably find a way to keep their coverage on that network. But instead, they're complaining about the fact, oh, we're not getting you guys aren't going to get the numbers. Because the Michael Mohoville guy is basically been against streaming from the get-go. So I think they need to start working on trying to make their broadcast better instead of worrying about what other people are thinking at this point, and get the broadcast to be better, because people are tired of the lackadaisical coverage, or tired of the lackadaisical broadcast, and they want the broadcast to be better, but it seems like they don't care, and they don't even listen to the criticism that they've been getting. Instead, you got Fox pundits who are trying to defend some things on the broadcast, which I don't think are defendable at this point. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kurt Busch. Now, Kurt Busch was most recently on Wednesday on the most recent RFK Racing podcast they do, which I believe it gets put on the SiriusXM NASCAR radio channel as well. And Kurt Busch spoke on a lot of things, but one thing he actually talked about and brought up was the crash that took place at Pocono in 2022. So Kurt Busch obviously was in the final round of qualifying in the number 45 car for 2311 Racing, and was actually having a pretty solid year and was starting to charge his way up to the point standings. But also before this, he had been having a lot of bad wrecks, but he also had a top 5 finish at New Hampshire the prior race to this point, because 2311 had a really good run across the board because their cars have been starting to show a lot of proof speed in 2022. But one thing that happened at Pocono is Kurt Busch backed his car into the outside wall. Now, Kurt Busch basically said, why check the right, went to the medical center and revealed some very interesting information about what had happened. He spoke on the crash, and he basically said that about the crash, so what about the right front? He said, what about the right front? Go ahead and check it out and get the car fixed and see what's wrong with the car. Kurt Busch then said, we know that something is definitely wrong with Kurt at this point, and there's something not exactly right with Kurt. As soon as that moment happened, we all knew that Kurt Busch was probably not going to be coming back for a very, very long time. And since that time, Kurt Busch Kurt Busch now has been medically cleared in recent months to come back to racing in some way, shape, or form, but he has not come back to NASCAR at this point. And now you've got Kurt Busch, of course, who will be getting inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2026, which is justified. Kurt got 34 career wins, won a Cup championship in 2004, had the best resume of all the people that were on the list who were eligible for the NASCAR Hall of Fame this year. And if he had not gotten in the Hall of Fame, I think that would have been a terrible decision on the NASCAR Hall of Fame committee's part. You can say what you want to say about some stuff that's happened behind the scenes, but for Kurt, he deserved to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But that information getting revealed about him not knowing exactly where the damage was, that is really concerning, and Kurt unfortunately suffered concussion-like symptoms because of that wreck and the incident. And I think for Kurt now, I think there's a lot of clarity. He felt a lot of clarity going back to Pocono. He got the opportunity to do the command for the Cup Series race for the Great American Getaway 400, and I think that was a really good closure for him after what had happened. Now, could we down the road maybe see Kurt Busch come back and race in the sport? I would absolutely love that, but I don't know if Kurt's going to want to come back at this point. And Kurt Busch doesn't need to if he ever wants to come back. I mean, Kurt Busch has been involved with 2311 a lot more in recent weeks, which is good to see. He's been back with the team a lot more, and I think being part of the team could really help that program grow, considering 2311 is a little bit uncertain at the moment what the long-term future of that program is, with the lawsuit going on at this moment. Nonetheless, I'm glad to see that he kind of reveals some of the information. Some of the information is definitely really, really scary, but I think revealing some of the information is really, really important, and I'm glad to see he kind of talked about how he felt about the incident, how he felt about the crash, and felt about all that stuff. I'm glad to see he kind of talked about some of the stuff and revealed some of the information in regards to what happened from that crash that took place at Pocono in 2022. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jack Perkins. As there was a reveal by Speed Cafe yesterday that Jack Perkins is actually moving up his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut a little bit earlier in the year, as it has been confirmed by Speed Cafe that Jack Perkins will make his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut next weekend at the Chicago Street Course, as he'll drive the number 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. Jack Perkins' original debut was supposed to be at Portland at the end of the August, but there's been some opportunities that come up in the last minute for him to get the chance and opportunity to drive the number 19 car. For those who do not know who Jack Perkins is a driver who has competed in the Supercar Series and has 1 or 2 career wins in the V8 Supercars or the Repco Supercar Series. He's competed in the Secondary Series in there, and he's won a lot of races, and I believe has won a couple championships in the Secondary Series as well. Jack Perkins, like I said, his original debut was supposed to be at Portland at the end of August, but that has been pushed up a little bit earlier in the year. Now, big question many of you are going to be asking is, will Jack Perkins still be planning to run the number 19 car at Portland? Yes, the plan right now is that Jack Perkins is going to make, instead of just one start in Xfinity, he's going to make 2 starts. This could be a really big weekend for Jack. One, he's going to be driving for one of the best teams in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. That 19 car has had some pretty good speed so far this year. Eric Almirola's picked up a win earlier this year at Phoenix in controversial fashion. I think he absolutely could win this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Ty Gibbs got behind the wheel of the number 19 recently at Mexico. That car had really, really good speed, was one of the few guys that could keep up with Connor Zilisch all day long. And I think that 19's had some good speed throughout the 2025 season. Now, a big reason why Jack Perkins is getting this chance and opportunity, he drove the 16 Ryan Reed car, the Lilly Diabetes machine, I believe, at an event, like a Legends event that was taking place in Australia, I'm pretty sure. And he drove that stock car to kind of get experience because he knew this was coming in. Obviously, this is a really, really big deal because now you got a lot of drivers from Australia and New Zealand. They're going to be running that weekend. Obviously, Shane Gisbergen, who's looking for a third career NASCAR Cup Series win, and his second Xfinity win at the track, and his second Cup Series win at the racetrack as well. And then, of course, you do have rumors of Brock Feeney coming over, though we still don't have any official word if that's happening at this point. I do think there's a good chance it could happen, but there's been no official announcement on that front. And there's other big stories around that, like other drivers. Like we were supposed to see Cam Waters drive the next weekend, too, in the Cup Series. That deal, unfortunately, had fallen through for it to happen. But we got Will Brown driving a number 13 car for Call Racing, and I do expect Will Brown to be a pretty big factor maybe for the overall win, which would be really impressive if he could get it done. But I think for Jack Perkins, it's a really great opportunity to drive the 19. I think he will be up front competing for the win. I think he's going to have a fast and really strong car. I think it's going to be a great weekend for him. I think he's going to be good. I expect Jack Perkins to have some really strong pace and really good speed. We'll see what it can do. I really hope he can be very fast because I think he's got a good equipment next weekend. The 19's been good. It's been fast. It's shown some good speed. I expect the car to be good. I do expect it to be a pretty big factor potentially for the overall win. I think it's going to be a good weekend. We'll see what Jack can do. I think that car will be good enough, though, to compete for the overall win in victory next weekend at Chicago in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Tab Boyd. As it was confirmed yesterday that Tab Boyd has officially found a new job as a spotter for 2025 and for the remainder of the year. As it has been announced by Joe Gibbs Racing yesterday that Tab Boyd will begin spotting for Christopher Bell this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway and will follow many upcoming weeks in 2025 as well. It is expected that Tab Boyd will spot for Christopher Bell for the majority of the remainder of 2025. Let's go back to what happened a couple weeks ago. So Tab Boyd, of course, was let go from Hayek Motorsports about a week or so ago. He had been working with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. since around 2023 or 2024. Brendan Lyons originally was the spotter for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. who moved over to JTG Doherty Racing. Then there was a spotter swap, I believe in 2023 or early 2024. And then, of course, we saw William Byron get Brendan Lyons, and we've seen those two gel very well together. Tab Boyd has helped Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I believe win a Daytona 500 and has also helped him win a race at Talladega as well. There were some comments that surfaced on social media from Tab Boyd that basically kind of got brought up to attention, basically saying screw this place, saying some not so nice things about Mexico, and then there's a lot of theories going around that he was fired from the tweet. Now, if he was fired from the tweet, that I think is a little bit overkill at this point. I don't think Tab Boyd should be fired for sharing his opinion on Mexico. I think that would have been overkill. Maybe getting like a talking to, that would have been possible. Now, there probably was more that happened behind the scenes that we don't really know at this point, so we don't have all the information on that at this point on what happened there. We're probably never going to get the full information, but I will say, though, it's good to see him land on his feet, and it's an interesting opportunity. So this is now going to be the third spotter that Christopher Bell has had in 2025. CB Reese had been the spotter for Christopher Bell for the last 5 or 6 years. I have a theory that what happened to Eric Almirola at Talladega might have played a big role in CB Reese deciding after the All-Stars to just go ahead and no longer be a spotter in NASCAR. Then Michael Philippot, I believe, came in, and he's been the spotter for the last couple of weeks, and Bell hasn't been as good. I think Tab Boyd could be a really big factor to help Christopher Bell, considering Christopher Bell actually won the most recent NASCAR Cup Series race at Atlanta. This could help Bell become a really good super speedway guy because you look at Tab Boyd, he helped Joey Logano win the Daytona 500 in 2015, and he's worked with a lot of good people and a lot of good teams in the sport over the last 10 to 15 years. this is going to be a really strong opportunity for Tab. I think he's going to be really, really good with Christopher Bell. I expect these two to gel very, very well, and I think that everyone will probably bring up, oh, it's like Noah Gragson getting an upgrade and Kyle Larson getting an upgrade. And you kind of say, yeah, it's kind of true, he's getting an upgrade at this point from prior teams. But I think that Bell getting a stable spotter who can be really good to helping you, and they can work on that communication for the remainder of the year, I think that is super important, and it's really, really important to have that stability with someone in the industry. You want to have that stability, and you want to have that potential growth in the sport as well from that team, because Christopher Bell, I think, is a really good driver. I think he's got a great opportunity here to win the championship in the NASCAR Cup Series this year. Bell, I think, will have a good chance to make the Final Four, and if he's able to make it to the Final Four this year, he will probably have a car that's going to be good enough, because he's been really good at Phoenix. He's won the 2 prior spring races, nearly won the fall race at the track. If Bell makes the Final Four, I think he's a favorite to win this year. But I think having Tab Boyd to work with and getting that chemistry built together through the remainder of the year, it seems like this is going to be throughout the remainder of 2025, which I find to be really exciting and really, really good to see. I'm glad to see Tab will get an opportunity, and it's good for Tab, right, to have someone come in and work with the consistency factor. I think Tab will do a solid job as a spotter for Christopher Bell. I think he'll do some good things, and I'm excited nonetheless to see that Tab Boyd will get the chance and opportunity to spot for Christopher Bell. I think he's earned the right to do that. Good to see him find a new place to work for in 2025 to close out the remainder of the year. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Chicagoland Speedway. Now, there has been a lot of talk and a lot of conversation surrounding the future of Chicagoland Speedway and whether that track could make a comeback on the NASCAR schedule in 2026 or may not come back in 2026. Well, a couple days ago, Carson Nosbar went to Chicagoland Speedway, got access to the racetrack, and did a video basically all around the racetrack showing a lot of things that have been done to Chicagoland Speedway. Now, if you take a look at a lot of the photos that have been surfacing, there are some things that do need to be worked on with Chicagoland Speedway. When you take a look at the start-finish line and some of the area as well, that does need a little bit work. But you take a look at general track in a nutshell, there is also weeds that are being grown inside the racetrack as well in the scenes, which, by the way, that's only going to take a couple days of like weed killer and basically weed whacking, and that'll be ready to go at that point. But you look at the track itself, outside of a few things that need to be worked on, I think the track only needs like a couple months of work, and I think the track will definitely be really ready to go. I think Carson, who's been a big proponent, he's been talking about Chicago in a really, really big way, and we've been hearing a lot of rumors and speculation around that. So the rumors going around right now is that the future of Chicago right now is that very likely the Chicago Street Course more than likely will not be coming back in 2026. A lot of people that are lawmakers and city makers, they really do not want to return to the Chicago Street Course in 2026. They want to basically move away from that area. But it's also been stated from what people have said as well, they don't want to leave the Chicago market, because the Chicago market is a very important market for NASCAR. NASCAR wants to be in as many major markets they can be to be known as a national and growing sport. If you only have one, if you don't even have any of the major national markets like the New York City market, the Los Angeles market, or Southern California market for that matter, or you don't have the Chicago market, your sport for a lot of people cannot fully be taken seriously. And we've also seen how good the racing is with the next-gen car at the intermediate tracks and the mile-and-a-half tracks as well. Chicagoland, yes, there's also been some talk maybe about a potential repave at the racetrack, which personally I don't want to see Chicagoland get a repave at this point. Maybe down the road they could, but I think for the first couple years they don't need to repave the racetrack. I get there's a few things that do need to be done, maybe like some patchwork on the racetrack, like in Turn 1 there was a little bit of patchwork from the video that photos that surfaced from Carson. There's a lot of patchwork that needs to be done there. But I think in a nutshell, I think Chicagoland would put on an unbelievable and great show. The racing product would be unbelievable. We've seen how good the racing's been at Kansas for the last couple years. We've seen how good the racing's been at Charlotte the last couple years. I think even some of the Las Vegas races, which do have some dirty air issues, but even Vegas can put on some really fun shows and some really good products. I think Chicagoland Speedway would absolutely fit the schedule, and I think it would absolutely make a ton of sense to go back there in 2027. 26. 2026, and it should be on there in the future. Now, what does this mean for the street course side of things? Well, obviously, there's a lot of talk that San Diego is probably going to be coming back in 2000, or they're probably going back to the Southern California market. There's talks they're going to go to San Diego next year. We know Jordan Bianchi has stated they're working on a deal. An announcement could be coming in the next couple weeks. He said the middle of July, which tells me it's probably 2 to 3 weeks from now at this point if it's going to be the middle of July. It's unknown if that date's going to come from Chicago Street Course, if that's going to come from another area. Dale Jr. has suggested that the Mexico City day could the weekend of Mexico City could kind of go in that weekend, and basically then Mexico might move to like an early portion of the year if Mexico City, of course, does return to the schedule. But then you got to kind of look at this as well. If Chicagoland's going to come back and you're going to have a San Diego date, you're going to have to take a date away from another track in the IC area. Some have said maybe Darlington loses the date. There's been a lot of talk about the throwback weekend maybe going away at the end of this year. A lot of people are not a big fan of the throwback weekend in the industry as it is, though a lot of people in the industry, I say, will have defended the throwback weekend. But I think Chicagoland absolutely needs to be on the schedule. The racing product is way too good to not be on the schedule, and I think it'd make the most sense to be a really good racetrack on there. So we'll see what happens with the Chicagoland rumors, but there's a lot of smoke to the rumors right now. When there's a lot of smoke, there is a lot of fire. I think Chicagoland is going to end up on the schedule next year, and I'm really excited about that because I think the racing product is going to be good. I think it's going to be strong, and I think the track absolutely has earned the right to be on the schedule next year. I hope it happens. I really hope we see Chicagoland on the schedule next year because I think the racing will be really good at that track. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Daniel Suarez. Now, Daniel Suarez is one of the biggest two people we're talking about in regards to silly season for 2026. A big reason for that is because Daniel Suarez is currently in a contract year with Trackhouse Racing for the 2026 season. And there's been a lot of talk about his future with the organization and team. A big reason for that, like I mentioned, he's in a contract year with Trackhouse Racing, and many believe, and there's a lot of uncertainty, whether he is going to return to Trackhouse Racing next year. Now, there were a couple podcast clips that did surface recently. First, Daniel Suarez on the Dale Jr. Download talked about his trip to Mexico City, talked about seeing all the fans cheering for him, picking up the win in the Xfinity Series race with Junior Motorsports, and of course in that backup car, the Quaker State car that originally was going to be there. And he basically said there was a lot of excitement around that, but he also talked a little bit about that. And Dale Jr. asked, when do we expect an announcement coming toward your future with Trackhouse Racing, whether you're going to return or not? Daniel Suarez did state that he probably will know in the next 2 to 3 months whether or not he will be back with Trackhouse Racing in 2026 on the NASCAR Cup side of things. He says, though, he loves being with the Trackhouse Racing family, and he would love to stay with the team going forward, and he does have a lot of options, though, available for 2026 if he does not return to Trackhouse Racing. There's also, of course, the other elephant in the room, and a big reason why there's talk about it, and that is Connor Zilisch. There's a lot of talk right now in the industry that Connor Zilisch could end up being full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series in the 2026 season. There's been a lot of speculation around that because, one, Connor Zilisch is getting a lot better on ovals at this particular moment. He's been picking up the ovals very quickly. We know he's a great road course racer, but we weren't sure how he was going to be on the ovals. But Connor Zilisch's speed on ovals is starting to be shown a lot quicker. Connor Zilisch has had finishes at recent ovals of second at Charlotte, second at Nashville, and he won the most recent oval race at Pocono. He could be a factor to win the Xfinity Series race at Atlanta this weekend, and he's going to be running the Cup Series race at Atlanta tomorrow evening. And then you got to think about some other opportunity, other things, like Connor's a better road course racer, in my opinion, than Daniel Suarez right now. And I think if you put Connor Zilisch in that car at this moment right now, I think that Connor Zilisch should be able to get in that car, and I think he'll be able to perform a lot better at this moment than Daniel Suarez is. So the big question right now is what is going to happen to Daniel Suarez? Will he return to Trackhouse Racing next year? I think right now it's 30-70 that he returns and doesn't return. I've been leaning toward the fact, I was saying maybe he could come back next year because of the sponsorship side of things, which if sponsors are willing to pay for him to stick around with the team, you absolutely keep him around, especially if Mexico's coming back. You keep him around with the team and organization. But I'm also kind of looking at this like we've seen Daniel Suarez in the NASCAR Cup Series now in good equipment now for about a decade at this point. And Suarez has been all right, but he's not been setting the world on fire. He's not been going out there contending for wins, and he's not been going out there contending for victories on a week-by-week basis, which if you're in a Trackhouse Racing car, you should be doing about as good as Ross Chastain. And Ross Chastain, no offense to Suarez, but Ross Chastain's been contending for wins and has won in every single season since getting the Trackhouse Racing in 2022. Ross has got, 6 or 7 career NASCAR Cup Series wins. Daniel Suarez has been with Trackhouse Racing now, and he's only picked up 2 wins, and one of those came in a 3-wide photo finish at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Connor Zilisch is a better driver at this point. I think that I'm leaning towards Zilisch most likely getting that number 99 seat. Then some are going to say, well, what about Shane Van Gisbergen? Well, Shane Van Gisbergen is going to most likely guarantee you a spot in the playoffs right now. They're likely not getting rid of winning you're in at this point, and he just picked up a win in Mexico, and he's getting better at ovals. His average finish has been improving. I know he didn't have the best run at Pocono, but he qualified well and ran in the top 20 early in the race, and I think that he's starting to get these ovals figured out. And I've seen him been out qualifying Daniel Suarez a lot more, and he's been at times outrunning Daniel Suarez. So I think at this point for Suarez, his future Trackhouse is very much in jeopardy at this point. But I do have a little bit of a theory and a potential thing that could happen. If Daniel Suarez does not return to Trackhouse Racing, he could still be part of the Trackhouse Racing family. My theory is that he may end up potentially in the Xfinity Series in the number 80A car as like a driver swap, where we see Connor Zilisch move up to the number 99 car next year and Daniel Suarez go to the 88. Then Daniel Suarez would get a top-level opportunity in the NASCAR Xfinity Series because Junior Motorsports is the best team in Xfinity at the moment. That 88 car has been really good this year, and I think Daniel Suarez could do a really good job in the Xfinity Series. I mean, he's an Xfinity champion. He's not a bad driver. He's got 4 career Xfinity Series wins, and I think Suarez, if he got behind the wheel of an Xfinity car, I really think he could be a legit championship threat and contender with the Junior Motorsports team. Plus, if maybe down the road, if Junior Motorsports ever decides to go full-time NASCAR Cup Series racing in the future, if they ever decide they want to go ahead and do that, I could absolutely see Daniel Suarez being the driver that they end up choosing for that seat, because Suarez brings sponsorship and funding, and I think Suarez would be a really, really good candidate for that seat. I just think at this moment right now, there's a lot of smoke around Connor Zilisch moving up next year, and I think it's very likely he's going to move up. I get there's a lot of concern about moving him up next year to the Cup Series right now, but I just feel like Zilisch is a better driver overall right now than Suarez. And I think he'd do better than Suarez. I get Suarez brings sponsorship and funding, but I would keep Suarez in the Trackhouse family for a year, but not keep him in the Cup Series. With Pitbull leaving too, I think that plays a major role in him also staying with the team. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with Daniel Suarez and whether or not he's going to stay with the program or not. Right now, my prediction is Daniel Suarez will not be back with Trackhouse Racing next year, at least on the Cup side. I think he may end up in Xfinity or go to Colleague Racing, but it sounds like Ty Dillon and Allmendinger are going to be back next year, and there's really not a lot of other options out there. So my prediction right now is he goes to Xfinity and drives for Junior Motorsports, but gets select starts with Trackhouse, maybe select starts in a third Colleague car, maybe select starts with JRM and Cup next year. So we'll see what happens. Right now, I think Suarez's future is a little bit uncertain with the Trackhouse Racing team. I think he will likely not be back next year at this particular moment in point. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story in today's episode as we're talking about Ware Racing. Now, we did a video covering the story on the channel yesterday, but it was announced and confirmed shockingly and reported by Jenna Fryer from the Associated Press that Ware Racing has officially been sold to TJ Bashire, and he would like to have a 3-car team by the 2027 season, as noted in the article. A little bit of backstory on TJ Bashire. TJ Bashire was one of the co-owners of Spire Motorsports from 2018 to 2019 up until the end of 2024. It recently was noted that he has left the team and organization to pursue other opportunities, and he sold off his stake to Dan Towers, who now is a part owner of the Spire Motorsports team. That group over there at TWG is really at this moment running the operation over Spire Motorsports. Jeff Dickerson is mostly the mouthpiece at this moment, but right now that team is being run by the TWG group. That's why there's a lot of money coming into the team and organization. That's one of the reasons why TJ Bashire has left the team in recent years. Now, there's a lot of questions surrounding what's going to happen with this program for 2026. Well, it is unknown if they're only going to be a 1-car team next year or if they're going to be a 2-car team. First off, it has been confirmed that Cody Ware will be back in the number 51 car next year. He will probably likely have the same crew chief of Billy Plurdy, who's been the crew chief for that number 15 car in the last couple years and is now the crew chief of the number 51. And Rick Ware is going to stay on as one of the part owners of the team. So pretty much it's just going to be, I don't know what the name change is going to be. There's been no confirmation on what the name change exactly might be for this program, but TJ Bashire will come in and be a part owner, will be a full owner of the team and organization. Going into 2026, you got to ask yourself if they are going to get a second car full-time next year, if they're able to get that second charter, because right now they're leasing out a charter for 2026 to RFK Racing. The other charter, the 51, will go out to RFK Racing for 2026. Ryan Preece is safe, at least at the moment, for 2026, as confirmed by Bob. I don't think TJ Bashire coming in and taking over the operation is really going to change things at this point, at least for 2026. I don't expect much to change on that front. Stated in the article, though, continuing on, we'll talk about some potential candidates for the seat. Saying on the article, he kind of talked about the lawsuit as well, basically saying that he doesn't agree with a lot of Jimmy Johnson's thoughts on the situation. He feels like they were a little bit coerced for the situation there, and they feel that Jimmy is a little bit wrong and doesn't know the facts about the situation. Because remember, Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing are in a lawsuit right now in regards to the number 51 charter at this point on getting an extra charter for 2026. It has been stated they want to have a 3-car team for next season, and Jesse Love's name has been linked to that 3rd car potentially for 2026 at this moment, if they do end up, of course, getting the 3rd charter. The judge has been leaning more toward Rick Ware Racing at this point, keeping those 2 charters, so at least their charter for next year. So at this moment, nothing is going to change, I think, with this organization. But the interesting thing is that lawsuit there and how RFK kind of gets linked to this as well. But the big thing we got to talk about is potentially that second driver with the team if they do decide to expand to a 2-car team next season. I think there's only 3 or 4 really good options available at this point for that car. I mean, Daniel Suarez could be an option for this seat, but I don't expect Suarez to leave the Trackhouse or Chevrolet pipeline at this point, so I think that's going to be a possibility. Let's go to the Xfinity Series real quick. Let's begin with Sheldon Creed. Sheldon Creed is one of the drivers as part of the Haas factory team at this moment, and to my understanding, the Haas factory team is not planning to expand going into next year. They're going to be a 1-car team, at least for the foreseeable future right now. So Sheldon Creed could be a potential candidate for this seat. Now, Sheldon Creed, I think if he's going to want an opportunity to move up to the NASCAR Cup Series next year, he is going to need to bring a lot of money to the table. Well, one, he's got a lot of money behind him, but he is going to need to bring a lot of performance to the table, and he's going to need to start winning some races. He's been all right in the Xfinity Series Haas factory team, but he's still not won a race at this point. And this year, outside of a couple good runs, I've not seen Sheldon Creed really put himself in position to go out there and contend for wins and go out there and contend for victories. I haven't really seen it at this point. So I'm not sure if Sheldon Creed is the best driver for the seat. Then you look at Sam Mayer. According to Jordan Bianchi, Sam Mayer's name has been linked as a potential candidate for a potential ride in the NASCAR Cup Series in the future. I think this could be a potential landing spot for Sam Mayer. One, Sam Mayer, in my opinion, he brings some funding to the table from his father's company with the KPS sub. I think that's still a sponsorship with the team. But he's also got that Audible group that's sponsoring him as well. But number 2, Sam Mayer, unlike Sheldon Creed, I've seen more consistency from Sam Mayer this season. And Sam Mayer has been very, very good with this team and with the program of the Haas factory team. He's been a lot closer winning races in that 41 car, and I think that he would be a really good candidate for a potential cup ride. There was talk that he was going to be a candidate for the Front Row Motorsports team for 2025. That obviously did not end up happening. He moved over to the Haas factory team, but now he's got a potential pipeline if they do move up next year. So I think Sam Mayer could be a potential candidate that could move up in 2026. But I think the most likely option at this moment right now is if they do get a full-time second ride, I think it is going to be Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie has prior association with TJ Bashire, of course, driving over with Spire Motorsports. Corey technically still does have a par contract with Spire. That's one of the reasons why he's driving for Spire Motorsports in the NASCAR Truck Series in that 07 truck. But he's also driving the 01 car for Rick Ware Racing. TJ Bashire has prior experience working with Corey LaJoie. They have a really good friendly working relationship from what I know. And I think that Corey LaJoie being the driver would absolutely make a ton of sense at this point. Corey LaJoie also, the other thing got to look at, though, is the Amazon situation and what's going to happen with the potential of Amazon in his deal, because I believe he has a multi-year deal with Amazon to work as a broadcaster at this point, unless it's only a 1-year deal, and then, of course, he finds a full-time seat. but I think LaJoie being a full-time driver would not be a bad option. Corey LaJoie is not an awful race car driver. Yes, he's not won a race in the top 3 series, but LaJoie isn't the worst driver. I think we forget that in 2023, Corey LaJoie was the only driver that didn't score a DNF. He just had some bad runs, sure, and he didn't do amazing, but LaJoie was better in 2023 than he was in 24, and he almost won a Truck Series race recently at Michigan, was in the top 5, and showed some really good speed at the end of that race, and almost put himself in position to pick up that win in victory. So I think LaJoie is the most likely candidate. Some will purpose not. I don't think any Haley will ever be a candidate. I don't think she ever will be. But getting back to the other thing, got to talk about, what about Rick Ware switching over to Dodge if they want to be a legit group? There's obviously rumors of Dodge coming into NASCAR, in at least the Cup Series in 2027. I think Rick Ware could be a legit option. I think they're partnered with I don't remember who they're partnered with in the NHRA, but I know Tony Stewart's team is partnered with is Dodge at this point. So maybe we see Rick Ware that team get involved with Dodge if they come up to Cup. I think that would be a very interesting wrinkle, because I think Trackhouse is going to be one of the teams. I think Colg may be a team that could switch over. Legacy probably not. Rick Ware would be a team that I would be very interested if they were a team that could switch to Dodge in the next couple years. So I'm interested to see what happens on that front. Nonetheless, I'm looking forward to see how things kind of play out with the remainder of silly season on this front, and what happens with the situation over Rick Ware, who goes to those seats and who gets those rides. But we're going to see them switch over. We're going to see some changes with the ownership over there, and we've got them being sold at this point. Kind of wild stuff on that front. We'll see who ends up driving for the program. We'll see what happens long term for the program, and we'll see if that team can show a lot of improvement in the next couple of years and get as good as they hope to be. So that is going to today's Law NASCAR News and Motorsports News episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Notifications on us if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What are your thoughts about Rick Ware Racing being sold? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Daniel Suarez's future? Do you think he'll return to Trackhouse Racing or not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We're going to have the Cup Series qualifying reactions in a couple hours, so now we are also going to have the Xfinity review if the weather ends up holding off for the day, and then on Saturday we'll have the Truck Series race review, the Cup Series race review, and then of course if Xfinity gets pushed back to tomorrow, we'll get to do that as well on Saturday, and then on Sunday we'll have of course a silly season predictions more than likely, and other content dropping as well. We got content coming on people Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Cletus and Farr on Dodge Ram, Frankie Muniz, Connor Zilch, Junior Motorsports, all that good stuff. Sheldon Creed, Sam Air, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, name it. All the good stuff will be dropping on the channel very, very soon. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content, other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.